Hey up. We're back in After Effects today and we're doing 3D tracking. There's multiple different kinds of tracking. We've got a 3D camera, we've got a single point 2D track and a 4-point track so that we can distort a plane. We're going to start off with a 2D track. It's where you track a single point but not in 3 dimensions. So first I need something to track, and the best things to track are high contrast points that the computer can recognise easily. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a marker on the wall, film my footage and bring it into After Effects. Once we're in After Effects, we need the tracking panel. If you can't see it, then you go to Window, you scroll down and you press Tracker. Now for our footage, we're just going to select it and we're doing the single 2D point, so I'm just going to click Track Motion. And you'll see what that does is it opens the source panel of only our footage and puts a tracking marker on it. You've got 2 boxes inside each other and then an X in the middle. So I'm going to move it so that my tracking point is over the top of my tape, and then I'm going to press a little play button to track forward. Once it's tracked forward, you can see this path of keyframes that the tracker has created. We need to put that into our composition. So what we're going to do, we're going to make a null object. That's an empty layer. Null objects are places to store information that we can reference later. So we go to Layer, we go to New, Null Object. Now we're going to edit the target of our tracker in the tracking window on the side, and we're going to choose the null object and then click Apply. Double checking that it's the X and Y axis. When you press OK, you'll see that all of those keyframes that we've taken from our footage, they're now on our null object. So we can parent anything we like to that. For instance, the first thing I want to do is get rid of my tape. I don't want to show a piece of tape on the wall. If I'm tracking some text into some footage, I want it to look clean and lovely. So how am I going to get rid of it? Well, I took a clean segment of wall from somewhere else in the image. I froze it in time by right-clicking, going to time and clicking freeze frame. And then I parented its position to the null object. Now it's going to see all those keyframes that we tracked in for. Finally, I'm going to adjust the anchor point so that it stays over the tape. And bingo! We've tracked a 2D point and got rid of the tape. Then I added some text just to express my views, and let's move on. Next up, we're going to track 4 points and distort a plane. A lot of this is the same as the single point track, but let's jump into After Effects and see what we can do. Right, so here's our footage, and today we're going to do a screen replacement because I want to watch Doctor Who at work. So I filmed my screen and I put little contrast tracking markers in the 4 corners. I did it on 2 screens, so I've got 8 markers on my footage. So I brought it into After Effects and we're going straight back to the tracking panel that we know from before, and we're going to press track motion just like before. However, the change is we are going to change it from a transform to a perspective corner pin. When we apply that to our footage, what it's going to do is distort it by playing with the corners of that footage, a bit like this. Once we've added our tracker, we're then going to position it so that tracker 1 is in the top left, 2 top right, 3 bottom left, 4 bottom right. And then we're going to track forward. After you've tracked forward, make sure to double check, make sure your track hasn't gone wrong, maybe fix some bits that need fixing. But then we're going to edit our target just like before, but instead of adding it to a null object, we're going to put it straight onto our target footage. For me, that's this MKV clip from Doctor Who. Then you're just going to click Apply, and you'll see it's added a corner pin effect to our footage and done exactly what I just told you it would do. Now, I know you're looking at that and you're thinking, so snazzy, you've done such good work, but it's not good enough, because what I want to do is make sure that the reflections that were on my blank screen can be put on top of my footage. And the way to do that is really easy. I'm going to first add footage to the second screen because that's where most of the reflections are. And now once I've done that, I'm going to duplicate my base layer of footage, put it right to the top. And now we can't see anything. It's just our original footage again, but that's fine because we're going to change the blending mode to screen. What screen does is it measures the opacity of each pixel based on its luminance. So the darker something is, the more transparent it becomes. And because our screen is black, we can lift the white reflections atop it and place them onto our footage. If you were being really careful here, you would then go and cut out our screens so that we don't get this brightening effect on the rest of the footage. We only add it to where it's necessary, but I can't be bothered. So I'm just going to reduce the opacity so it's less obvious. Now, doing this is not just for screen replacements. You can use it to put text on a wall. You can use it to put pictures on a wall. You could even put some text on the floor. You can do whatever you like. You get it. And finally, the big one, 3D tracking. It's the hardest to understand. It's the hardest to attain. But just look at the results. Let's go back into After Effects and find out what we did. So, we're back in After Effects finally, and I know where you've all gone to straight away. It's to our trusty tracking panel menu. And you've seen our tracking panel menu, you've seen the options there, and you know we're not tracking motion. This time, we're doing a 3D track, so we're tracking camera. And you press it, you're so hopeful. You see it says analysis. It's going for ages because this takes annoyingly long, but then it goes to solving camera. You had so much hope, and then red screen. Analysis failed. Solve failed. Nothing works. Because you've jumped the gun. The first thing you're going to do when tracking this footage isn't to track it at all. We need to prep our footage to make it easier for After Effects to understand. The way After Effects 3D camera tracking works is that it looks for pixels moving across the screen and tries to follow them. And using the information it gathers all on its own, because it doesn't let you give it extra information, it's going to work out a 3D camera track with the magic inside of its algorithm. But if you have a bint in the middle waving his arms around like a prat, that's going to confuse After Effects. It's going to go, that arm's moving that way, but the camera's going this way, so I don't know what to do. So, what we're going to do is we're going to cut out our bint, and that's me. And the way we're going to do that is by using the Rotor Brush tool. The Rotor Brush tool is a lovely, easy way of cutting someone out, so you don't have to go through frame by frame. So we're going to double click on our footage, we're going to click on the Rotor Brush icon, and then we're going to use the green paint to decide what we're cutting out, and then we're going to hold Alt and use the red paint to get any extra bits that we don't want it to cut out, but it keeps selecting with its purple lines. Finally, we're going to play around with feather and shift edge because we want to make sure we get as much of me out of this footage as possible. Another thing to note is that I had to Rotor Brush twice because I left the frame. As soon as I left the frame, I cut my footage, and then I went to the bit where I come back in and I did a whole new Rotor Brush effect. This is just making things easier for the software. Now, just to help my computer, I like to export my Rotor Brushed asset as a PNG. That just means After Effects isn't going to keep automatically cutting you out. It's going to just recognize the PNG sequence. When I'm exporting my PNG sequence, there's only one thing you need to remember that isn't the usual way of reformatting footage. It is that you have to go into what it's exporting, click PNG sequence, but also change where it says RGB to RGBA. We've gone through what alphas are in a previous video, and RGBA is RGB color information, and A, alpha. That way, it's going to give us true PNGs with a transparent background rather than the really annoying ones on Google where you're searching for a PNG, but every time you search for your TARDIS PNG, you just get a picture of a TARDIS with a white background and you just want to scratch. Anyway, so we've got our PNG sequence in our composition. We've exported it and brought it back in. And we're going to go to our trusty set matte effect. We've used this in previous videos, so we know what we're doing. We're going to go to the effects and presets menu. We're going to search for set matte. We're going to drag and drop it onto our footage. And we're going to pick the PNG sequence as our source. We're going to invert that so that instead of only me, it is everything that isn't me. And now, viewers, we go to track camera. We go to our tracking panel, we click track camera, it's going to do the annoying analysis thing that takes far too long, it's going to say solving camera, and then it's going to give you a bunch of random points on the screen that you don't quite yet understand. The first thing you're going to do before we mess with the points is click create camera. All that does is apply the 3D camera to anything else you make 3D. Now we've created that, if we go back onto our footage and click on the effect and then we see these points again, when you right click them, you can add things like text or a null or a solid. And what that's going to do is create these things in 3D space. So let's add some text. And I'm going to press play. And my text is there. I'm going to drag the PNG sequence to the top. And it's there, and it's behind me. We have text in 3D space. We've done it, ladies and gents, but I know what you're thinking. We don't just want texts. We want pictures. Well, not to worry. I grabbed this wonderful picture of Matt Smith off the internet. What a doctor. I then cut out the bits I didn't want. I created a null this time, and then I parented his position and orientation to that null, because all that information is baked into our 3D camera. You can either select one of those points, which won't give you orientation, only position, or for Matt Smith, I selected a bunch of points, then it takes the average orientation and it gives you that in your null. And now he's peeking over the shelf. Finally, I know what you're thinking. We've added text, we've added pictures. How do you add footage? In exactly the same way. You create a null, you parent it, you adjust the anchor point so it's exactly where you want it to be. That's it. Once you've prepped your footage, you've done the hard part. Then you press 3D track. It does that for you. It takes a while. It's annoying, but it does it for you. Now you're just adding stuff. You position stuff wherever you want. So I went online, I picked out a bunch of assets like the space, like the fire, like the portal, and I just stuck them in there. It's not difficult. You've 3D tracked, ladies and gents. But not only that, you've done a 1.2D track. You've done a 4.2D track. Now you've 3D tracked. It's been a lot today. We've moved very fast, but fantastic work. Do I need anything for the outro?
That's a wrap, people.